Okay, so here's the first part of the muscular system, chapter 10. Okay, so we will learn about the muscles. There's 3 types of muscles, which you've learned about: skeletal, cardiac, and smooth. So we'll look at how muscles move your body and move things around your body. Okay, so muscles can only pull, they can never push. So muscles only have the ability, like we learned about in that other chapter, to pull together because the strands shorten. They can never pull apart. They need another muscle to pull them apart. Therefore, you're always going to have antagonistic pairs. So you're going to have one pair that's moving and the other pair, or the other one of that pair, that reverses the movement. So you'll have one that moves, the other one that reverses. They are called the prime mover and the antagonist. And then the synergist, sometimes there are synergist muscles and they help move the agonist. So they're like little helper muscles, and then you have the agonist and the antagonist. And then there's also fixators that immobilize the muscle, so they're also in play there. Okay, so this is your pectoralis muscle, and you can figure out what the muscle does based on what bones it's hooked up to. So you can tell that it's anchored to these 2 points, and so it's going to pull the arm up. And so you're able to kind of predict what the muscles are going to do based on their position. This one is for extension. That's your lat, your latissimus dorsi. And so you can tell how it moves the arm based on where it's tied to. And then this is your deltoid. You've got 3 parts to your deltoid. So it's showing the middle fiber mostly here, but it wraps around and there's 3 parts. And so this allows you to abduct your arm. And then here is your teres major. So this allows you to move your arm back down to adduct your arm. So you can tell what they are based on where they're connected. Okay, so one muscle may act as a prime mover or an antagonist or a synergist depending on what movement you're doing. Okay, so to name the muscles, some things that help you know the name is like muscle location. So those are like temporalis is over your temporal bone right here. The muscle shape, the reason deltoid is called a deltoid is because a delta is a triangle. So, and since there's 3 parts to a deltoid, that's the deltoid. And then the size, like gluteus maximus, gluteus minimus, long teres longus, etc. The direction also, you can figure out the names from that. So rectus means it runs straight. Transversus means they're running at right angles. Oblique is at different angles. And the number of origins, like biceps, there's 2 of them. There's 2 parts, and triceps, there's 3 parts. So the names like make sense once you analyze them. Okay, and then we've already talked about this in another chapter, but each muscle has a point of origin and a point of insertion. So like the sternocleidomastoid attaches to the sternum and the clavicle, and then the insertion is on the mastoid process. And then sometimes the naming is based on the action they do. So like flexor or extensor or abductor or adductor. So here's an example. The extensor extends the carpi wrist, radialis, radius, longus, length is long. So that's where all those names come from. So don't be intimidated by them. They all make sense. Okay, there are different ways that skeletal muscles can be arranged, and we'll focus most of our time on skeletal muscles. So they're arranged in fascicles, but they can be circular, convergent, parallel, or penne. So I'll show you these different shapes. So there's circular, like your lips, your orbicularis oris. Convergent, like it starts from one point and then goes out. So convergent, it converges. That's pectoralis major. Fusiform is having points at each end, and that's biceps brachii. The sartorius in your leg there on D, your leg is parallel. And then multipennate, you have, and then pennate and unipennate. So you can see that they kind of fan out like a feather. They look like a feather. That's a good way to compare them. So you've got some different versions of them. So circular is concentric rings. Convergent is a broad origin they converge to one tendon and then fan out. So there they are. And there's convergent. And then parallel they're parallel like straps. And then fusiform is like little spindles. They look like a feather. So there's fusiform and parallel. Okay, so pennate is when they are attached obliquely like a feather, running in that direction. There's unipennate, bipennate, or multipennate. So unipennate is they're only attached to one side of the tendon. Bipennate is two sides, and then multi is multiple. So that's what multi looks like. So you can see many different of those origin lines, and then they are attached there. There's bipennate and there's unipennate. Okay. So the most common ones are circular, convergent, parallel, fusiform, and pennate. There might be some other weird ones. They determine the range of motion. So the way that the grains go, that's going to determine how they're going to shorten. And if you have long fibers more parallel to the axis, they're going to shorten more, but they're not as powerful. So that's a clue on their function. Let's look at levers. You might have learned about levers in school. And so all these bones and the muscles that pull them are based on levers, and there's three classes of levers. So a lever has a rigid bar and a fulcrum. So that's like in a seesaw, you have the bar, and then the fulcrum is like the triangle in the middle. There's an effort and a load. So the effort is where the muscle's contracting, and the load is like what's being moved, okay? When you're dealing with levers, you can calculate how powerful they are using mechanical advantage, which is like how much effort it takes to move the load. And then there's also mechanical disadvantage, and it deals with like the distance that you're moving the load. Let's see. Okay, so as you are farther, if your effort is farther from the load and you have more torque, you're going to have a mechanical advantage. And if you're closer to the fulcrum, you're going to have a mechanical disadvantage. So here is the fulcrum on a typical lever. And then this is the load, and then this is the effort, okay? So this is a simplified view of it. And then this is like a typical seesaw, so same setup, the fulcrum, effort, and load are in the same place. This is going to be a mechanical disadvantage because the fulcrum and the effort are too close together. Okay, so a full class lever is what you just saw, like a seesaw. That's a first class lever. The fulcrum is in the middle. So there is your typical first class lever. Your effort goes down and your load goes up, just like a seesaw. And here's an example of that. This isn't the best example, but your effort is here, and then it's going to cause your load's pulling down, it's going to cause your chin to go up, and your fulcrum is right there in the middle. Second class lever is where the load is in between the fulcrum and effort. So this is like a wheelbarrow. On a wheelbarrow, the fulcrum is the wheel, like that part, and then the load is in the middle. That's like your load that you're carrying, and then your effort is where you're holding the handles. So here that is your fulcrum, and then the load, you got your concrete, and then your effort is where you're lifting up. So this is structured differently than a first class. And this is like standing on your toes. So right here's your fulcrum, your load, the weight of your body is here, and then your effort is that muscle contracting there, that gastrocnemius. Third class lever is where the effort is between the fulcrum and load. So those are switched. So these are like tweezers and forceps and most of your muscles. Okay, so your fulcrum is on one end, like these tweezers. Your effort is in the middle where you squeeze, and then your load is on the other end. So this is most of your muscles. You have your load there, your fulcrum, and then your effort is in front of that. This is a little confusing, but your effort is right here. Do I have my laser on? Okay, sorry. So your effort's right there. Okay, so basically most, like all muscles work with these principles. Okay, so let's look at some of the major muscles. There are over 600 muscles in the body, so it's a lot. For each one, we will look at, there's a whole bunch of tables you can use, but we'll look at their description and then their origin and insertion. Action is what they do, like what is the purpose of them contracting, and then innervation is what nerves are connected to them. Don't get overwhelmed. What I always tell my students is like find it on your body, relate it to your body, and study it there, because you can take your body with you, and you can be thinking about this when you're not studying anatomy, so you can like practice your knowledge while you're out and about, and study these tables really well. But definitely act out these contractions for yourself. Feel what they feel like. Be aware of the contractions that are happening in your body. Okay, so these are a lot of the muscles, obviously not all of them if we have 600, but these are a lot of them. Some of them you're going to be familiar with because we use them as like nicknames, like your deltoid, your lats, your pectoralis or your pecs, your biceps, your triceps. So a lot of them you already know, but there are going to be some new ones. So find ways to remember what they are. And there's the posterior view. Okay. We're going to start with the face, with the head, like we did with the skull. So there's a facial nerve called cranial nerve 7, and that's what controls your face muscles. And there's two groups. There's muscles of the scalp and muscles of the face. Okay, so here's a table that you can use. I think I'll go to the pictures though and point those out. So use these tables. It shows you how to pronounce them and the description, the origin and insertion. So go through each of them and try them, like see what each muscle does and read through it. Okay, so this is a real human body. So this is your frontal belly, so you can contract that. Your corrugator supercilii, your eyebrows. Occipital belly is back here. This is your sternocleidomastoid, which we've seen already, and that turns your head. And your platysma is up here. Okay, this is a little clearer. So there's your platysma, there's your sternocleidomastoid, your masseter choose. Temporalis is right here on your temporal bone. Frontal belly is on your frontal bone. Occipital belly is on your occipital bone. You don't have a muscle here. Zygomaticus is your smile muscle, and you have a major and a minor. You have your orbicularis oculi, which is a circular muscle around your eye, and your corrugator supercilii is your eyebrow. Your buccinator also helps with chewing in here, and your risorius. And then you have your orbicularis oris, so don't get that confused with your orbicularis oculi. So this is around your lips. Mentalis is right here. This is a funny muscle. It causes your chin to like wrinkle. It's strange. Depressor labia inferioris, and then depressor anguli oris. So that also moves your lips. Let's see. Oh, this is your trapezius back here, which are your traps that go back into your back, and then your splenius capitis. So here's some different actions and what they do. So go through each of those and try them so that you can learn what the muscles do. Okay. Okay, so for mastication, that means chewing. We use cranial nerve 5, and the ones that move your jaw and help you chew are temporalis and masseter. So try those muscles. Now you know where they are. Grinding movements is the pterygoids, and then chewing is buccinator. And then tongue movements, you didn't see those in that last picture, but glenoglossus, hyoglossus, and styloglossus. Okay, so there are those. And you can see them pointed out there. And that's your tongue. So you can see how those anchor and help your tongue move. Okay, so there's tongue movement. There they are. Try it out. See which muscles you're using to use your tongue. Okay. So the sternocleidomastoid is that muscle that allows you to turn your head. And there are two parts. There's the suprahyoid and the infrahyoid. And it also deals with your tongue and your chewing. So your sternocleidomastoid is pretty important. So suprahyoid is the floor of your oral cavity, anchors your tongue, moves your larynx. Let's see a picture if there is one. The infrahyoid is the other one, so strap-like muscles. They bring down the hyoid and larynx and allow you to swallow. And there they are. Okay, so you have, so here's your sternocleidomastoid sternocleidomastoid right here, these two. So it anchors to the top of your sternum and then also to your clavicle. And then you have here's your mylohyoid, your stylohyoid. This is your hyoid bone, which is the one that's kind of floating there. It's the only bone that's not connected to other bones by ligaments, but it is connected to other bones through tendons, through muscles. Okay, and then you have your digastric, your stylohyoid is right here, part of it. The thyrohyoid. So all these different muscles here are supporting all these structures. And there it is in real life. Oops. Okay, and then here's your buccinator. Here's some of those other muscles from the side view. Okay, now we're looking at head movements and trunk extension. So you have anterolateral muscles that move the head, and then you have some muscles in the back that help you keep like sitting up straight and maintaining posture. So here they are, sternocleidomastoid, and then you have all of these that are going to keep your head upright. Look at all that anchoring your head and your neck so that you're able to sit up straight. Okay. Let's see. Okay, here's some other ones that are similar, and they're anchoring to your vertebral column in your back, and they're keeping your head up straight. This is your mastoid process, like in your jaw. So there you are. Okay, and there's all these other muscles. Look at all that. All of them are tied to keeping your back straight. We need to keep those strong so we don't injure our backs. And then there's muscles that are between the vertebral column, the vertebrae. And they are also really important to keep our back aligned. And that's it.